Hi, welcome to my conversation with Larry Kirwan. Many of you may know Larry Kirwan as the Irish American writer, musician, noted lead singer of Black 47, playwright, author. Larry, looking forward to having the conversation with you.
Pleasure, Leonard.
How are you today? Where are you dialing in from today, Larry?
Uh, from my home in Soho, in New York. It's down by Chinatown, in that
Ex-
in that area,
oh,
downtown.
excellent. Larry, just to kind of go back to the early days, you left Wexford in the 1970s. When you look back at that time, do you feel you were escaping from something, or were you searching for something when you left Wexford?
Maybe both. I always knew I was going to go away at some point, and I had a student visa to get to New York. So I went out to take a look at what it was like, and I had so many adventures in the 4 or 5 months that I was there that when I came back, I was thinking, much as I love Wexford, I'm ready to change and go to New York and see what see what I could do there. And I had a little bit of money, but I didn't take it with me. I had a little bit
Okay.
saved. I think I took about 150 bucks. I figured I got to hit the ground running when I get to New York. And so that's how I first left. And then I left later with Pierce Turner, and we had remarkable times together. But that was the first leaving. So it was a bit of an escape, but also I just wanted to be a place where there would be so many different types of people, different nationalities, and have to see if my Wexford smarts would stand up to that. Because you get a great. I'm not sure what Wexford is like now, but the Wexford I grew up in was a place you were challenged pretty quick in life to to adapt. There was no real childhood. You were treated kind of as an adult pretty early on. I always worked in the summer. I either worked picking fruit or I worked at my grandfather's yard, the stone cutting yard. So I always had my own money and was always able to provide for myself. And most people in Wexford were like that at that point. You didn't get an allowance or anything of any sort from your parents because there was no money, in Wexford at that time. This is pre EU time, pre
Mm.
EEC. So yeah, it was
And
fun.
and you said, like, had you a plan when you went over there? You've alluded to the fact that, yeah, you wanted to see that piece, like what was out there, but what were you thinking? When you first arrived, and to go from Wexford to what, it was New York you arrived into?
Yeah, right.
What
Actually,
was
we
the feeling?
yeah. Went straight to 42nd Street, which was the center of, I suppose, illicit behavior at that point. And and then I had to get a room for the night, and I went to the New Yorker Hotel, which is on around 34th Street and 8th Avenue, which was ground central for street life,
Mm.
and went into the hotel and I only had about 150 bucks with me, so I think a hotel room at that point was 50. And I was saying 50,
Here's the budget gone.
yeah, So so I got out of the line, and a guy came up to me and said, "You know what, man?" He said, "I'm from Kilkenny or whatever. I have a room upstairs. Uh, I can take you in for $10 a night." And I leased the room, and so I said, "Great," So I went upstairs and left my bag there and everything, and then went out to party or see what was on the town, and then came back, and then there was already 3 or 4 guys asleep on the floor, and or asleep in the beds. So I had to get on down on the floor and sleep there, but it was only $10 a night. So after 3 or 4 nights of this, I thought, man, this is the land of capitalism. So I went into the business
No
and
way.
waited downstairs for guys to arrive in, and that's how I supported myself. And Eventually, there was a sign up on the wall saying, looking for a guitar player to play in an Irish bar in the Poconos. I was thinking, what are the Poconos? They're the mountains. And so I went and I did an audition, and there was a guy there, and he said, "You got it, man. You know how to play and how to sing." And then he gave me a ticket for the bus, and I got on the bus and went down to a place in the Poconos, a little town there, and there was an Irish bar that this guy was starting,
Wow.
and two musicians there, and I joined in with them, and from then on, um, oh well, it was an incident that happened. The guy who started the bar, the FBI came for him after the first couple of weeks, and he climbed out the window and disappeared. So now we were all unemployed there. So we had to go out and find jobs. But eventually, I found a job as a waiter or a busboy, and I had my guitar with me, and the owner, who was an Italian guy, said, "Yeah, you guys got an Irish band? We had the space downstairs, and we started to play there." So now I had two jobs and stayed there for a while, and then eventually traveled a bit around the country, and eventually came back to New York, and then back to Wexford.
And how
So
long were you away, Larry, before you came
uh,
back to Wexford the first time?
probably almost 5 months, I'd say, because I arrived early with a visa. I arrived in May, and I came back in around the end of October, maybe November. Yeah. So about 5 months.
So you went back to Wexford, and was Larry going to stay after seeing that, after experiencing that? Was Larry going to stay in Wexford, or
Well,
was that the beginning?
yeah, I had been living in Dublin. So I went back to Wexford, and then I still had the apartment in Dublin because Pierce Turner was living in it. And so I went back living there for a while, and then, basically staying in um, Dublin during the week, and then hitching to Wexford on the weekends and partying and playing in Wexford, and then going back to Dublin. And I had some irons in the fire. Pierce and I had a record label in Dublin at that point, that Polygram, that Jackie Hayden. I was trying to think of Jackie's last name. Do you know
Oh,
Jackie from Wexford?
yes,
Well,
yes.
Jackie, we went to Jackie with a single that we had done called "We Have No More Babies Left." And it was for charity. It was about the disaster in Bangladesh at the time, around the
Yes.
same time that George Harrison was
He
doing it.
yeah, he kicked off that. The
Yes,
first big charity fundraiser, wasn't it?
right.
Concert.
So we were ahead of him.
Yeah.
And so we had this, and Jackie said, "You two guys, you write songs of your own and everything. Why didn't I could give you a label?" And we're thinking, "Give us a label?" And she said, "Yeah, get some local talent. You can write the songs for them." And so the first band we signed up actually were the Menapia folk from Wexford, who were friends of mine. That's Nick Cloak and Eddie Redmond and Mick Whitney. They were a big folk band in Wexford. So we wrote some songs for them and for other people, and the songs were released. So I came back to see, is that going to work out? But after seeing New York, I thought, nah. And then I used to be talking to Pierce about it. I said, I'm going to go back. And he said, I'd love to go. Pierce is in the Arrows show band at the time.
Okay.
So we kind of had to buy Pierce out of his servitude to the Arrows. Pierce is playing 6 nights a week with the Arrows for £25 a week
That's a shift.
in those days, and traveling the country, coming in like at 6 in the morning, as I'd be going out, or coming into. But so eventually we bought Pierce out of the Arrows, and then we headed off to New York with two guitars and hit the streets.
What of Wexford did you bring with you?
Oh,
Besides
Wexford, you get a lot.
Pierce.
Yeah, I got Pierce.
Yeah.
uh, Wexford, Wexford, you get a lot of growing up quickly, and you get a lot of street smarts in Wexford. I never felt out of my league in Dublin or even in New York, I mean, you learn pretty quickly,
Yeah.
what's going on, and you have to adapt. But that's what I wanted to do, is to learn how to adapt to different nationalities and different types of music, and that type of thing.
Oh, what other music were you listening to? Because like it was a melt. Like I know it's a hackneyed phrase, the melting pot piece, but like musically it wasn't in the late '70s in New York.
Yeah, there was everything in New York. Every type of music you could imagine was here, and so whatever you got into, nationality wise, you could get into Italian music, you could get into um, African music, Syrian music, Jewish music. So all of that kind of reigned around us, and we were also trying to find what is it we wanted to do,
Yeah.
with music. And Pierce and I had already written songs for many years together, so we were pretty advanced with that, and uh, you know, we learned fast. You got to learn fast in New York. You're meeting musicians that are so much better than you and who have a way of doing things. And if you want to play with them, you kind of have to learn how does he play like that, and
Okay.
and that wasn't the way as much in Wexford. Wexford or Dublin was very exclusive. People wanted to keep you out rather than take you in. In New York, it was like, can you keep the beat? Can you keep this groove? Let's see what you got. And they would be thinking, when we would put something into it, thinking, that's great, man.
Almost like a session in a traditional Irish sense, but just in a much broader frame, isn't it?
Broader way, yeah, and it was electric,
Yeah.
and you're playing for audiences, you're playing for audiences who didn't know you, and you could get a sense from them what they liked and what they didn't like, which was an important thing to learn. It wasn't that we cut our cloth to that, but after a while you begin to get a feeling, not for what is commercial, but for what is good. If you can see people really stopping to listen to you.
And what were
Um,
people wanting then, would you think, Larry? Like where does the Black 47 piece come in then here? Where does that story
well,
begin?
Back 47 was many years later. Back
Okay.
47 was happened in 89,
Okay.
1989. This was in the mid 70s, so I had a lot of learning to do about different things. So Pierce and I formed this band with the worst possible name you could ever come up with. People couldn't say it. It was Turner and Kirwan of Wexford. So people would be going,
Okay.
Turner and Kirwan of where? It was like, it was almost impossible to say. But from the get go, we knew you got to make records.
Mm.
You got to get those records on the radio. And we made a record called Neck and Neck, which is a really good song. We didn't even know it was that good at the time, but it stood up to the years. And we had really good harmonies together. And it sounded like what was going on, and yet it was different. And that started to get played on the radio in New York. And we got a record deal out of it, a small record deal with a label called Audio Fidelity.
Okay.
And we learned through just being in Audio Fidelity how to do things. And then we thought, Audio Fidelity is not doing that much for us. Let's do it ourselves. So we started to make our own records and selling them in the bars as we went along. So we made an album, which was all original music, but it was different demos we had done. And that's when I realized I'll never do another demo. Demos are stupid. To be doing a demo, you make a record,
Just get straight
and
into it.
get straight into it. What's the point in making a good demo? And that came back to haunt us later on when we were with when we were when we actually got a big time deal with Epic Records, part of CBS, and we went and we did 12 demos. We did them all in one day, and we brought them to the record company, and the record company was floored by them. But then they decided that we should have a producer and we should make the record of the demos. And we were never able to make the record as good as the demos.
Why
It took
was that? Is it an energy piece? Is it catching lightning in a bottle? What was that?
Yeah, a lot of it. And, I went through the whole thing of making records from the bottom up, where you got a producer and you lay down the drum tracks and you lay down the bass tracks, you lay down everything. But there's nothing quite like a live band playing in the studio. And Black 47 did all, we did everything live in the studio.
Yeah.
And then I would go back in and put vocals on them, but I would sing um, a ghost vocal or whatever you want to call it, and oftentimes we would use that because there was the energy of the band. But there was a lot of other things that Pierce and I were doing. We happened to meet this guy one night. We were playing on St. Mark's in a strange place. And this guy comes in, and there was nobody there. And we had to play 4 sets. So he came up, or the bar owner come up and said, "Would you mind if this jerk gets up and plays with you?" And we thought, "Nah, great." And so he came up to us and said, uh, "I'm a poet." And we said, "Great, okay." In Wexford, you wouldn't say you were a poet because people would laugh at you. So I think Pierce and I laughed at him and laughed at our own joke about it. But he was an improv poet.
Wow.
So he got up and Pierce said to me, we'll just play the backing track of Whiter Shade of Pale.
Okay.
So he starts to do this. He thinks we're geniuses straight off. He's never heard Whiter Shade of Pale. He was a Polish poet. And I mean, he was born in America, but he was just kind of like in a different world where he wouldn't listen to Whiter Shade of Pale. And so he goes off into this 30-minute rant, and we're playing Watershed of Pale. And then, of course, we spread it out and we break off into different improvs in it. But every now and again, we'd come back into Watershed of Pale. I mean, we were stoned out of our heads, too, at this point. Everybody in New York was high in those days. And we couldn't get over it, too. This is great fun, this improvising.
Yeah.
We had improvised at little things. We'd never done it for 30 minutes. So this guy used to come in to play with us, and then he decided, "I want to do gigs. Will you guys put a band together?" And we thought, great, because he had plenty of money, and he was paying us, and we were paying the guys to play with us. And so we became the Copernicus Band. And with that band, Pierce couldn't do it at the time, but I toured all of Europe and all of the Soviet Union. We were in the Soviet
No
Union
way.
in 1989, just before the wall came down. We were there playing for radicals and people who were against, against the regimes, and we were playing. We were playing in Prague one night, and they decided to. This is in Czechoslovakia.
Okay.
It was actually a country at that point. Um, they decided to challenge the authorities by hiring out the big ice hockey stadium and putting us top of the bill because we were out from outside the country. And we would be the ones to take. They figured it wouldn't put us in jail, but they might put the Czechoslovakian musicians in jail. So we arrive in. We thought we were playing at a boys' club, and all of a sudden we're taken to the stadium. But we see that up in the top of the stadium, the militia was there with guns pointing at us.
What year is
And
this, Larry? This
this is 1989, which I
89.
was
Okay, okay.
born.
Yeah.
But there we are. And so, I knew that I had hired the guys to play with us, so I felt a little responsible for this. So I go up to the producer thing. I say, there's guys up there with guns, and I've been to Northern Ireland when a gun is pointed at me. I know the problems. He said, "Don't worry, they will not shoot us all." And I was thinking, okay, but you're not going to be on the stage. So we played the gig and they didn't shoot us, but it was just an amazing gig to do, to go out and do an hour's music, totally improv.
Yeah.
And,
And has
you
that
know,
politics always been kind of infused in what you do?
yeah, I was always into
It's
politics.
it's
And
just it's just there depend on, and that was almost a happenstance piece, was it, that that guy came in, and but it's just it does it land, where does it land with you, that politics, that fusion piece?
yeah, you just, there's a lot going on in the world. Black 47 had a saying or a banner, or what you would call it. Um, to be Irish is to be political.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's just the way we felt. It's the way I was brought up. You know, I mean, like my grandparents, my two grandfathers. I just realized when I was about 16 or 17, I'd never seen them in a room together. They didn't complain about each other, but they were for different sides in the Civil War,
the old
and
politics, yeah.
yeah, the old politics. But it was very real to me. And then with Black 47, I started to explore that, with writing songs about James Connolly and Michael Collins and you know Countess Markovich and the various Jim Larkin, people like that.
Yeah.
And it's still there. I still feel it. History to me is not something that's in a book. It's something you carry around with you.
Yeah.
And Wexford reeks of history. Like I usually take a tour group into Wexford every year or so, and uh, I do one thing. I just stay a night or two, but I always at the end of the night I wait till everybody is gone, and then I sneak out and I walk through the streets of Wexford at 2 or 3 in the morning, and then I get it back, everything back. The very stones in Wexford have history, and if you're allowed to explore that inside your own head or your own soul, it's there.
You still feel it in your bones.
Yeah, I still feel it. Yeah,
And can you
but I
feel
do
that?
it. I do it every year just to make sure that I'm not caught myself in some way, that it's still there.
That is incredible, because I think the Stones almost have to have a story that just talk to us. Like there, some of those have been laid for so long. There is that piece of, there's the DNA of people walking around today that have been walking around then, but also from the trauma. We carry the traumas of the past through generations.
Definitely. Yeah, I've always felt that, and that was why we called the band Black 47.
Yeah, yeah.
It was going to be a political band. I ran into a guy called Chris Byrne, who happened to be a New York City detective, an uilleann pipe player, and a rapper. I met him in a bar one night, and he had been a fan of Major Thinkers. That was the band that Pierce and I had that got the record deal. And we got talking, and we, we were, I knew he was political, and he knew I was political. So we knew the Clash had broken up. Bob Marley was dead, and we thought there's an opening here for a band that is political in not in everything.
Hmm.
We still could do the rowdy relationship songs and everything, but we wanted everything to be real, which
Was it
caused
ever was it
a
ever
bit
a
of a
weight you had to carry, or was it something that was light for you to just to bring that piece to the fore for people? Because as
yeah.
you
I
said,
never
no, I never felt it.
I never felt any kind of a weight from it. It was a knowledge.
Yes.
Knowledge is never a weight. Memory is a weight. I'm finding now sometimes that memory can be weighty, but not knowledge. Knowledge is wow. I was just in Egypt about a month ago, less than a month, and I went there for a specific reason. I was really into the Alexandrian Quartet
Mm.
by Lawrence Durrell, and there's uh, a writer from Cairo called Mahfouz that I was really into, and I went there. Apart from seeing the pyramids and everything like that, uh, I went to actually see if I could get the Stones of Alexandria to talk to me,
Well,
and that was harder, but you got it, because you have certain amount of it from being obsessed with a book. Or this is a 4 book quartet.
like, what is it, Larry, about music that can give that kind of voice or just air to to those who just can't speak?
It's a
Like
it's a
what?
special thing, and I realize it more now that I've gotten more into the theater world, and specifically writing musicals. I still
Yeah,
write plays, but writing musicals, I see now what, because I do the 3 things: the lyric writing, the book writing, and the composing. And I see now what the composing does to it. And that particular melding of lyrics and melody, and how that happens. And I tend to see it more because with the musicals, I might have the book, work and write, and then I might have a lyrical idea, but it's not until I get the compositional idea together that the 3 of them meld together into one thing. And that was very interesting to me.
that is power because it will hit you in so many different places.
Yeah, but
Orally,
it's also
hourly, your heart. It's
yeah, it's
here.
also a huge responsibility then too. You begin to think, am I joking myself that I'm writing the 3 of them, but I have the experience and the talent to do it. I mean, you don't write a great one all the time, but
Yeah,
I the great thing you learn about the longer you're in this business is that you learn very quickly what's a good idea and what's a not so good idea. Now that can screw you up in certain ways. There was a song by Black 47 called Maria's Wedding that became a big hit over here,
hmm.
and especially in New York because it dealt with a New York thing. And there was a lot of chords in it, and uh, for whatever reason, I couldn't. June, I'll have to call you back. I'm doing this interview here. Um, See, I couldn't pull it all together,
Yeah.
and we used to do it, but I was insisting we can get this, But I was the one screwing it up in the band because I had to keep the rhythm going with the guitar, and for some reason I put all sorts of weird chords in there that only worked with that song and made the song happen. I couldn't get them right, and we did it maybe about 6, 7 times in the place Paddy Riley's where we used to play at that point, and it didn't go down well. And then one night we did it, and a crowd of NYU students came in, and they got the song. And when they got it, I got it at the same point. They understood everything about the song instinctively, and the song worked. And then it went on to, I can still remember the chords now, but I couldn't back then.
But the chords had to be right, had to be the delivery method for the lyrics. Was that kind of the
That was
configuration?
it. Yeah, and I cursed myself thinking, why did I put so many goddamn chords in here? But
Larry,
there they were.
would it have been fair to say that a lot, maybe especially the Black 47 stuff, would have been driven in that passion, that maybe even that anger piece? Like, have you held that? Does that still come out in your work now?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, with Black 47, we got a really tough reputation straight off. Well, first of all, Chris said to me, "Well, the band I'm in tonight, when we had this meeting, was after a gig that he had played, and I got up and jammed with him. And I hadn't played with a band in 4 years at that point. We'll backtrack on that, but um, I kind of didn't know how to play with a band anymore. But everything went well when I was playing with Chris, and he said, "Well, I got I got 2 children, a third one coming. I'm a cop, but I need this money, and the band broke up tonight, but I have gigs in the Bronx on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll do them with you, man. You know? And so we got together once and we wrote down every song we knew. At that point, you had to play 4 1-hour sets in the Bronx, and you were playing to really tough audiences who wanted to hear Christy Moore
Okay.
and the Water Boys and whatever, And we didn't know any of that. So,
We're playing our
I knew a
music.
lot I knew, yeah, I had said we had said we were going to do as much original music as
Yeah.
possible. I was teaching Chris original songs in the car on the way up to the gig, and we got up on stage and we did them, and we did a lot of Dylan songs, and Chris played a lot of jigs and reels, which I wasn't that good at playing at the time, and the audience hated us. It was like so right from the start. In fact, we were playing a Bob Marley song, and someone shouted out, you know, enough end music here.
No way.
Play something Irish. And I said, all right, going to play this one. I'm Irish. It's reggae. I wrote it. That makes it Irish. And so right from the start, it was confrontation with the audience. It was a give and take. And Chris had a gun, because he would come from from being a cop,
Yeah.
and cops at that point had to wear a gun. So just to show, Chris had a thing he would do is he'd take out the uilleann pipe case, and he'd take the uilleann pipes out, and he'd take off the gun and the holster and put them into the case.
That's a
But
move.
he would do it like, everyone watching this, like, and then he would leave it open on the stage, put his foot on it, and then we're
Well, Larry,
playing.
was there an energy in that? Like, was that
Oh,
something that drove you? Like, was that like this is cool almost, or
no,
was
we weren't thinking it was
no?
cool. We were
What
thinking
was that? Yeah,
survival. These
survival.
guys,
Okay. Yeah,
these guys were tough. I mean, these are Irish construction workers
yeah,
who had gotten up at 5:30 in the morning, were on the job at 7. They've been drinking. They've been drinking since they stopped working at 6 o'clock.
yeah.
It's now midnight,
Okay.
and they have to listen to fucking Bob Dylan songs or something like that.
I don't need
Done,
poetry. Just give me something I can sing to.
done. Yeah, well, they wanted, Spancel Hill or something like that. And
Larry,
you know,
has New York changed, or like you're there? You probably, I'd say, the amount of times you come back to Ireland have been explaining America to Ireland. And maybe you explain Ireland to the Americans. I don't know, but what's your experience of that now? Like, has it changed, or what's the
Oh,
difference?
New York has definitely changed. New York has changed big time. Um, when we went first in the 70s, it was so cheap to live there.
Right.
So you could get an apartment in the East Village, which was dangerous, but at the time, but you could get it really cheap, and then you learn to maneuver the streets. That's one thing you had to do if you're going to fit in and last there. You had to learn, how do I survive on these streets, because um, it was very mixed. How would you say it? There was just a lot of people on the make, a lot of junkies out there, a lot of people who were robbing other people. So you had to be able to see someone coming in the distance and think, is this guy safe or not?
So the
You
aesthetic
know?
of Taxi Driver was that quite true in terms
Oh
of
yeah.
that type of visual that they
I
used in
would,
it?
I would say I would say it was even tougher than that, because that's a movie
Yeah,
and you can kind of feel it. Um, I mean, the taxi driver guy was going crazy, but we were trying to keep our heads together, to have a decent life. you know, um, De Niro was playing a crazy guy,
yeah,
so he was overreacting at times. To
yeah.
survive, you couldn't do that, because you're going to sooner or later you're going to meet someone who's tougher than you,
Okay.
and you had to be able to see a person coming down the street. And I still have that. I can. I'm with people, and I sometimes think, do you not see this? And you're still walking right there.
Yeah,
move to the side, man. Move in because this person is unstable. I could tell. It's a little harder to tell now because everybody is on their phones all the time and they're on their earphones.
they're in their
Uh,
heads.
yeah.
So is that
So
sense of anxiety, Larry? Like that sounds like back in the 1970s, it was a real sense of living on the edge while not wanting to, as you said, just wanting to get on with life. But is
yeah.
that anxiety there, maybe in a different way? You
Well,
know,
I didn't even consider it anxiety. This was like part of your living arrangement with New York City.
this is it.
You know, if I'd lived up on the Upper East Side and paid a lot of money, I wouldn't have been coming in touch with that. As it was, I lived on Avenue B and Third Street, which was the actual dead center of heroin dealing in New York.
Mhm.
So much so that the dealers kind of got to know you. So the junkies were lined up outside your door, and they would go over to the junkies and they would beat them with a newspaper and say, "Let the man in. He lives here." I'm thinking, no need to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want this guy seeing me the next time. I got enough problems. Seeing me and saying, "You're the guy I got hit over the head with the newspaper for." So you had to come to those terms, but I never considered it anxiety. It
Okay.
was it was how do I you know you learn to live it. I was thinking about Lou Reed recently. Lou I knew from the After Hours scene. After Hours is a big thing in the 70s and early 80s, and I got to know Lou as a drinker and a hanger out in the um, After Hours, and we used to talk about poetry. He was really into Yeats.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Um, but I always, and whenever I would see Lou outside it, we lived pretty close to each other. Um, he always walked in shadows, always, and I began to notice that. And he stayed in,
Literally walked in shadows, like literally found the shadow. Wow.
yeah, found a shadow and walked in there all the time. I could see him coming. That's the thing about living in tough areas. You see everything coming. Is this a threat? And it's not even that you're going around nervous, but sometimes it hits you like this is a threat. Now move. You
And
don't want
like,
to walk into it.
and would you still think America is a place of opportunity? Like it has been that for generations, especially so many Irish people who went over there. Does it still have that sense of it?
Well, you got a real idiot running the place now, so it it's that's made it harder. Everybody else was kind of trying to do a halfway decent job. I mean, I'm not in favor of a lot of the politicians who ran the country, but in general, everybody's trying to get along. This guy is, you know, um, a total narcissist. So he only sees things, he sees his reality, and he expects you to be part of his reality. And a lot of us don't choose to do that.
I think it would be a dangerous, scary place try to understand Larry his reality. I don't think it's possible to get into that. It's
Well, you see, we had a lot of experience of it because he was here in New York in the 70s and 80s, and we knew he was an idiot. So we don't have the same admiration or glow from him. I still see the guy who used to call up the New York Post and pretend he was someone else and talk about himself. I saw Donald Trump in a place, and he was doing this so that he would get mentioned on Page Six, which was the big gossip column at the time. So I remember that guy. So I don't take him that serious, except you have to sometimes.
so have you some hope then that when he's finished, and he will be, it's a fixed term, that some level of that pendulum might go back to a normality that's more normal than now.
Yeah, but it will be affected by what he's done,
Okay.
but it will go back to a different normality. Yeah, but it will still be affected for some years anyway. Yeah, he's affected people in a big way.
Okay.
The Yeah, the level of nonchalance about him, even, and that the whole country's not rising up and saying you can't take the Department of Justice and run it just for your own good, you know.
You can't put an idiot in charge of the FBI.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'd say there's been a few like that before.
Oh
But
Lord. Um, yeah. Do you follow things in Ireland? Would you still have an idea what Ireland like? How do you feel Ireland has changed over? You come back, you said once a year, and you do the walk in Wexford. But do you get a sense of how we've changed, or is it better for
yeah,
the better, for the less, for the more?
for the better, I would say that, the the younger people now don't have that sense of inferiority that we had, or that some of us had. Um, and it's all to do with being in Europe and being able to look out and be part of something. And you don't have the church. The church was just a scourge on people. It did good things in its time, but uh, it just wasn't good for Irish people. I always think that Ireland really suffered. The two forms of religion that took over in the north was this awful Calvinism, this
Mm.
awful Presbyterianism that, was hard as a rock. And in the South, you had this very um, hard-edged Christianity that didn't have a lot of had a lot of faith and hope, but not much charity in it.
It had a lot of cruelty. I think it's fair to
A
say.
lot, yeah, a lot of cruelty, and you know, not having that and having Europe there. And it's great about a lot of things. I mean, I hate the effect that an idiot like Tommy Robinson can be having on the country, on certain people in the country. But, you know, over here, there's always been 25% of know nothings,
Mm.
the know nothing party. And Trump's genius was able to add another 20% to that 25%. So, in ways we've gotten more here, you're more used to discrimination and hatred, that's there for people who are not like themselves. And, the whole thing that cutting back on immigration is going to have a real effect on the country. This is an immigrant country, and the immigrant comes in, and the immigrant works like a dog to
Mm.
get the second generation in a good job, and then to go to college, maybe in the third generation, or even in the second generation. So you get that manpower and woman power just coming in to do good, to work hard, and
To
not,
innovate, to innovate.
yeah,
Yeah.
and they add to the general culture.
Yeah. Okay, Larry. I suppose we'll wind up this one, but we've touched on home. But what does home mean to you now, Larry? Or the idea of home? Where does that settle in your heart or in your mind?
Well, New York is home at this
Okay.
point
Yeah.
to me, but I think of Wexford a lot. Home, what the Wexford of the present moment is not really home to me. I mean, I see it there, and I I feel at home when I'm there, but it's not the home I grew up in. So I tend to draw more from the history of Wexford and my own experiences growing up there, my grandparents, my parents, um, all the people I grew up with, like Jack O'Leary, Jimmy Lacey, Billy Roach, Pat Kehoe, Joe O'Brien, all those great people that,
Mm.
I knew, and all the women I knew here too. The Wexford women are a special type. I, I have to say, I really admire them. They knew enough to get rid of me.
I think on that beautiful note to our Wexford women, we will say good evening, Larry, and thank you.
It's a pleasure, Leonard.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.